I was a man who thought he had it all. A home, a loving wife, and the kind of peace most people only dream of after long workdays. For 18 years, I followed the same routine, waking up early, heading to work, coming home tired, and trusting my wife completely. She managed everything, our home, the bills, the meals. She was the reason I felt balanced. At least that's what I thought. Every night, without fail, she would hand me the same small white pill with a glass of water. "It'll help you sleep," she said. "It'll calm your nerves." I never questioned it. I trusted her completely. I thought it was just a part of her love for me. Every night, like clockwork, I'd take it and drift off into peaceful sleep. I woke up rested, ready to face another day, and thanked her for taking care of me. But there was always something in the back of my mind. I never noticed it until it was too late. For months, those pills helped me sleep. But soon they didn't just make me sleepy, they made me feel heavier. My body grew sluggish and I started to lose my energy. Yet I never questioned it. I didn't think there was any reason to. I trusted her. I trusted her love, her care, her routine. The pills became a part of my life. I never missed a night. Even when I traveled for work, she'd pack them for me. "You won't be able to sleep without them," she'd say, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Every time I'd take the pill, believing it was for my health. For 18 years, I never stopped to think. Until one night, everything changed. It was the middle of the week. I had just returned home from a long day at the office, and the usual routine unfolded. Dinner was ready, hot and steaming on the table. She smiled at me with that same gentle smile, the one that made me feel like I was home. "You look tired," she said, handing me the pill and water, like she had done for so many years. I smiled back, thankful. But tonight was different. I wasn't tired. I didn't feel the exhaustion that usually weighed on me. For some reason, I didn't take the pill. I told her I was fine without it. She looked a little surprised, but quickly masked it with a smile. "Are you sure?" "You'll sleep better if you take it," she urged softly. But I refused. I told her I would be fine. That night, I stayed awake. I pretended to sleep at first, just like I always did, but my eyes stayed open. The house was quiet, too quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't lulled to sleep by the routine. I heard the faint creak of the floorboards outside the bedroom. The distant sound of a door opening quietly, carefully. I told myself it was nothing, but my heart started to race. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just the house settling, or a sound from the neighborhood, but the noises kept coming. She was moving around, more active than I had ever noticed. And then I heard it, footsteps in the kitchen, the back door opening. A car engine starting outside. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, but I didn't want to believe what I was starting to realize. I thought I was imagining things, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. Something had shifted. When she came back to bed, I could smell it, something faint but unfamiliar. Cologne. Not mine. My heart sank. I stayed still, pretending to be asleep. She climbed back into bed beside me, but everything had changed in that moment. I no longer felt like I could trust her. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. The same routine, the same smile. She made me breakfast, asked about my day. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, but deep inside I knew. Something had shifted, something I couldn't ignore. That was the night I stopped trusting the person I loved most. The next few days passed in a blur. My mind was consumed by what I had heard and smelled that night. The strange noises, the unfamiliar scent, the way she moved around so carefully as if she was trying to avoid being caught. I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that I was overreacting, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I wanted to confront her, but every time I looked at her, I saw the same smile, the same loving eyes, the same soft touch. She never looked guilty. There was no sign of hesitation, no crack in her perfect facade. She acted like nothing had changed, like I hadn't noticed a thing, and for the most part I believed her. After all, I had trusted her for 18 years. Why would I doubt her now? But that night I stayed awake again. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but I couldn't sit still. I had to know. As I lay in bed, I heard her leave the room just as she had done the night before. I waited, pretending to sleep, my breath slow and even, my heart pounding in my chest. I heard the creak of the back door, the soft whisper of her footsteps as she moved down the hall, the click of the door closing behind her. This time I didn't convince myself it was just the house settling. I knew. I had to know what was going on. I waited for what felt like an eternity, the silence in the house swallowing everything around me. Minutes passed. I could feel the tension building in the air. Then I heard it, a car door closing outside. My chest tightened. My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I got out of bed, moving slowly, quietly. My hands shook, but my legs felt like they were made of stone. I crept to the window and peeked outside. There it was, a car I didn't recognize parked just beyond the fence. The engine was off, the lights dimmed. I couldn't breathe. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but I couldn't deny the truth any longer. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, my mind racing. I had been asleep for 18 years, trusting her, believing in the life we had built. But now I was awake, and nothing was the same. When she returned to bed that night, she seemed different, more nervous, more aware. She didn't speak as much, and when she did, it was forced. She tried to kiss me goodnight, but I pulled away. I didn't want to be close to her. I didn't want to feel her touch when all I could think about was what she had been doing behind my back. The next morning, she was still acting normal, but I wasn't fooled. I couldn't shake the image of the car outside. I couldn't forget the sound of the back door opening and closing in the dead of night. I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore, but even now I couldn't confront her. I didn't know how. I still loved her in some way, and I still trusted her, or at least I wanted to, but every time I looked at her I felt a knot in my stomach. The illusion of the perfect life I thought we had built was starting to crumble. That afternoon, I found myself standing at the kitchen counter, staring at the bottle of pills she had been giving me for so many years. I hadn't taken one the night before, and I didn't plan to take one that night either. I didn't need them anymore. But as I stood there, something hit me. She had controlled me. For 18 years, those pills weren't just about sleep. They were her way of keeping me unaware, keeping me in the dark while she lived her own secret life. It wasn't just about the affair. It wasn't even just about the betrayal. It was about how she had manipulated me, how she had taken away my ability to see the truth, to question what was happening right in front of me. I had trusted her with everything. I had let her manage our lives, our home, and even my sleep. And now I was left with nothing but the weight of all the lies. That night I stayed awake again, but this time I wasn't just pretending. I was waiting to see what would happen. I needed to know the truth, even if it shattered everything I thought I knew about love. That night I was ready. For the first time in 18 years, I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I wasn't going to let her slip away into the dark without facing the truth. As soon as I heard her soft footsteps leaving the bedroom, I knew what was happening. I could hear the faint click of the back door opening again. I waited for the familiar sounds, the car door, the low hum of the engine. But this time I was no longer the man who could close his eyes and pretend. I lay still, my heart racing, my body tense. Every sound felt amplified in the silence of the house. I could hear my breath shallow and controlled, my mind filled with a mix of disbelief and rage. I had loved her, trusted her, and for what? So she could build a life behind my back while I slept soundly in the next room? Minutes passed, maybe more. I felt like time had stopped. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of a man's voice, low, familiar, and confident. It wasn't hers. My chest tightened, my hands trembling as I realized what was happening. She wasn't just stepping out to get some air or to read a book as she had claimed. No, she was meeting someone she had been hiding from me for years. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stayed silent, listening to the faint sounds of laughter, the scrape of a chair, the clink of glasses. It was like a cruel movie playing out in my head, and I was stuck in the role of the unsuspecting husband. But this time, I wasn't going to be a passive spectator. This time, I was going to see it for myself. I crept quietly to the hallway, trying to stay as still as possible. My pulse was deafening in my ears. There was no going back from this. I couldn't unhear the truth now. I needed to see her, to confront the lie that had been building around me for years. I made my way to the living room as quietly as I could, trying to steady my breath. I peered through the narrow crack between the door and the wall. There she was, standing in the kitchen, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her smile wasn't the gentle, comforting smile I had come to know. No, this smile was different. It was a smile of someone who was happy to be in someone else's company. The man was there too, leaning against the counter, relaxed. His jacket hung over the chair where I used to hang mine. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I had once hung my jacket there. I used to sit at that counter, sharing meals, talking about our day, believing we were building something together. But now it felt like I was looking at a stranger. She reached for his hand, pulling him close, and in that moment, I felt like the world had collapsed. My heart slammed in my chest and I froze. I couldn't breathe. I could barely think. All the years of trust, the love I thought we shared, the home we had built, it all came crashing down in an instant. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't process it. For a moment, I was paralyzed. My mind screamed at me to run, to shout, to do something, but I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot. Everything that had seemed solid, everything that had felt safe and familiar, now felt like it had been built on sand. And then, as if it were scripted, the door creaked open. The sound of the door hitting the wall echoed through the room. They both turned. Her face was a mixture of shock, guilt, and fear. I could see it all. The realization that her secret was no longer safe, that her carefully crafted world was about to unravel. The man scrambled, grabbing his jacket and bolting for the back door. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. He had been there before. He was part of a life I had been kept in the dark about. And now, just like that, he was gone. She stood there, trembling, her hand over her mouth. She was speechless, as if she didn't know what to say. But there was nothing left to say. The damage had already been done. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. I didn't even feel angry in the way I thought I would. I was numb. I walked past her, past the woman I had loved for 18 years, and sat down at the kitchen table. I stared at the bottle of pills sitting in front of me. The same pills I had trusted to help me sleep for all those years. The truth hit me harder than any physical blow. I wasn't just betrayed by her. I was betrayed by everything I had built my life around. I had been sleeping while she lived her own life, making decisions behind my back, building a world that I was never part of. That was the night I stopped being her husband. That was the night I woke up. The morning after the truth came crashing down, everything felt different. The house I had once thought of as a home now felt like a prison. The walls were closing in, each room suffocating me with the weight of the lies that had been hidden for years. Every corner I turned reminded me of the woman I had loved, but now I saw her as a stranger. The life we had built was nothing but an illusion. She tried to explain herself, to justify everything that had happened. Her voice trembled as she spoke, pleading with me to understand. She said it wasn't what it looked like, that it had all just been a mistake, but I didn't need to hear her excuses. I didn't need her explanations. The truth was already clear and there was no going back from it. I stood there listening to her tearfully recount her lies, but it all felt empty. The words she spoke were just noise. I couldn't focus on anything she said because the only thing I could hear was the silence between us. The silence that had always been there, only now it was louder than ever. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. The more I thought about everything, about the pills, the lies, the secret life she had built without me, the more I realized I had lost myself in the process. I had let her control my life, my emotions, my very sense of reality. But not anymore. I was done being part of her lie. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't even cry. I just walked into the bedroom, packed a small bag, and left. She stood there frozen as I walked past her. She didn't try to stop me. She knew. She knew everything was over. I didn't need to say a word. The hardest part wasn't leaving her. It was leaving behind the version of myself that I had built with her. The man who trusted blindly. The man who had lived in a lie for 18 years. That man was gone, and for the first time in so long I felt free. I went to a small motel that night. I didn't need a fancy room. I didn't need luxury. All I needed was peace. No pills, no lies. Just silence. I laid in the small bed, staring at the ceiling, my body aching with exhaustion, my mind racing with everything I had just discovered. But there was one thing that stood out above all the rest. I was awake. I wasn't being drugged into a false sense of security anymore. I was finally seeing the world for what it was. The next morning, I went straight to a lawyer's office. I didn't need sympathy. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was right or wrong. I just needed action. I needed to take back what was mine, my life, my dignity, my peace. The lawyer was shocked when I handed him the evidence. He didn't hesitate. The divorce papers were filed that same day. And the truth, every lie she had told, became a part of the legal record. The court hearings were straightforward. Her excuses didn't matter. The evidence was clear. Her affair, the pills, the manipulation. It was all laid bare and there was no hiding from it. She tried to defend herself, tried to say it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. When the final ruling came, she lost everything. The house, the accounts, the car, all of it went to me. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my life. It was about taking back everything she had stolen from me and making sure she never had control over me again. After the divorce, I couldn't stay in that house any longer. Every room, every photo, every piece of furniture reminded me of her lies. I sold the house, took the money, and moved far away to a quieter place, a smaller home just for me. The first night in my new place, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. There were no pills, no lies, just peace. The weeks turned into months. I worked simple jobs, fixed things around the house, and started to rebuild my life. I found real company, people who didn't need anything from me, people who treated me with respect. They didn't know my story. They didn't need to. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to live. Eliza tried to contact me, calls, letters, messages. I ignored them all. There was nothing left to say. I had already moved on. I had already found my peace. Years passed. Eliza remarried, but I didn't feel anger or satisfaction when I heard about it. I felt nothing. She became another person in a story I used to live. That's all she was now, a lesson, not a memory. Now when I lay down at night, I sleep because I want to. I don't need pills to silence my mind. I don't need to hide from the truth. I just sleep, peacefully in my own bed, knowing that I'm finally awake. Thank you for listening. If you believe in second chances and the strength it takes to reclaim your life after betrayal, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more real stories to life. Remember, peace doesn't come from what you have, it comes from what you stop tolerating. Stay awake, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone control your story.